The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as the question echoed through the crystalline walls. Ambassador Thelnora, her feathers ruffled in agitation, repeated the inquiry that had paralyzed the proceedings. Who among us can speak for these cubs? Who can translate the growls and snarls of predator young into civilized discourse? The question was not rhetorical. 3 Carvathi cubs sat in the defendant's enclosure. Their obsidian claws retracted, their tails wrapped nervously around their haunches. The eldest couldn't have been more than 5 solar cycles old. They had been found in the wreckage of a destroyed colony ship, the sole survivors of what the tribunal called an unfortunate military misunderstanding. The cubs needed an advocate. Without one, galactic law would remand them to a detention facility until they reached maturity. 15 long years of isolation, of being raised by droids and distant caretakers who feared their fangs. Dr. Lyra Voss stood in the observation gallery, her knuckles white as she gripped the railing. She had studied the Carvathi for 7 years, lived among them, learned their language of growls and body movements that most species dismissed as primitive aggression. She knew these cubs weren't defendants. They were orphans. The Carvathi are predators, Counselor Murdoch announced, his gill slits fluttering with disdain. They lack the vocal complexity for nuanced communication. Perhaps we should delay proceedings until... That's not true. The words left Lyra's mouth before she could stop them. 300 eyes turned toward the human in the gallery. Several counselors recoiled. Humans were predators too, after all, though most in the council preferred to forget that uncomfortable fact. Ambassador Thelnora's head swiveled with mechanical precision. Dr. Voss, you are not recognized to speak. With respect, Ambassador, I should be. Lyra descended the steps, each footfall echoing in the cavernous chamber. I've spent 7 years studying Carvathi communication. I can speak for them. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Counselor Murdoch's scales flushed purple with indignation. A human? Speaking for predator cubs. This is highly irregular. Irregular, perhaps, Lyra said, reaching the floor, but not unprecedented. According to Galactic Statute 347, any sentient being fluent in the language of the accused may serve as translator and advocate. Thelnora consulted her data tablet, feathers smoothing slightly. The human is correct. However, we must first verify her claimed fluency. The smallest cub, Eric, had been watching Lyra since she'd spoken. Now his ears perked forward and he released a series of low rumbles and chittering sounds. The other counselors heard only animal noises. Lyra heard a frightened child. She responded in kind, her throat producing the guttural sounds that had taken years to master. Eric's tail unfurled slightly. His siblings pressed closer to him. The chamber erupted in shocked gasps. Several delegates rose from their seats. Ambassador Thelnora silenced them with a sharp whistle. Dr. Voss has demonstrated linguistic capability. The council recognizes her as advocate for the cubs. Thelnora paused, fixing Lyra with an unreadable stare. Though I question the wisdom of one predator speaking for others. That's exactly why I should, Lyra replied. She approached the enclosure, and the force field lowered at a technician's command. Arik bounded forward, still cautious but brave. The boldest of the 3. She knelt to his eye level, placing one hand flat on the ground, a Carvathi gesture of peaceful intent. Arik touched his nose to her palm. Ask them your questions, Ambassador, Lyra said. Let me show you what you've been missing. For the next hour, the council questioned the cubs through Lyra's translation. They learned that the cubs' colony ship hadn't been a military vessel, but a refugee transport. They learned that the cubs' parents had died shielding them from explosive decompression. They learned that young Arek had kept his siblings alive for 3 days in the wreckage by rationing emergency rations and keeping them calm with stories his mother had taught him. They learned that Carvathi cubs could feel fear, grief, and hope, just like any other child in the galaxy. Counselor Murdoch, who had been most vocal about the cubs' detention, sat in silence as Eric described his mother's final words. The old counselor's scales had faded to a pale blue. When the questioning concluded, Ambassador Thelnora stood. The tribunal must deliberate. Dr. Voss, you and the cubs will wait in the antechamber. In the small room adjacent to the chamber, Arik climbed into Lyra's lap, a gesture of ultimate trust for a Carvathi. His siblings curled beside them. Did we speak well? Arik rumbled softly. You spoke perfectly, Lyra answered in his language. You spoke from your heart. The feathered one seems angry with us. She's not angry with you. She's angry at herself for not understanding sooner. Arek's ears flicked thoughtfully. You understand us because you are like us. A hunter. Lyra stroked his scaled head. Yes, and humans know what it's like to be judged for what we are instead of who we are. The chamber doors opened. Ambassador Thelnora stood in the threshold, her posture softer than before. The Council has reached a decision. The Cubs are declared wards of the Galactic Assembly. They will be placed with a species capable of understanding their needs. She paused, her eyes meeting Lyra's. Dr. Voss, the Council appoints you as their guardian, if you accept. Arek's claws dug into Lyra's jacket, not in aggression, but in desperate hope. I accept, Lyra said. As they left the chamber together, 1 human and 3 predator cubs, whispers followed them through the corridors. But Lyra didn't care about the stares or the judgment. She had spoken for those who couldn't speak for themselves, and in doing so she had reminded the galaxy of a simple truth. Being a predator didn't make you a monster. It just meant you understood survival, and sometimes understanding survival meant knowing when to protect those smaller than yourself. Arek looked up at her, his golden eyes trusting and bright. What happens now? He asked. Lyra smiled. Now? We go home. Together. Behind them, the council chamber's doors sealed shut, but ahead the universe opened wide with possibility.